Ethan Cole was an ordinary man, living on the quiet edge of Earth's last industrial zone. He worked as a mechanic fixing cargo haulers, drones, and old atmospheric engines. Life for him was simple, honest, and lonely. He had no family left, no wealth, and no dreams beyond keeping his workshop lights on. One gray morning, while Ethan was repairing a damaged cargo ship, a strange humming sound filled the air. It wasn't like any sound from an Earth-made machine. The vibration was deep and cold. Like thunder trapped inside metal, Ethan stepped outside, wiping grease from his hands, and looked up. A shining silver-blue vessel hovered above his workshop, perfectly still. No smoke, no heat, no sound from thrusters. The ship landed silently on the cracked ground. 3 tall figures stepped out. Their armor shimmered like liquid glass. They didn't look human. Their eyes glowed faintly with pale light. One of them carried a black metallic box with strange symbols glowing on its surface. Ethan froze, his instincts screamed to run, but curiosity held him still. The lead alien spoke in clear English, voice calm and deep. "Ethan Cole of Earth, you have been named the sole heir of Lord Karen of House Sereth, deceased last rotation." Ethan blinked, half laughing. "Heir? I don't even know a lord, or whatever that is," he said. The alien ignored his confusion and placed the black box on a nearby table. The symbols on its surface shifted and formed into English letters. "Inheritance certificate. Authenticated by the galactic notary of the Fifth Union." The alien continued. "You have inherited all assets, including property, fleet rights, and life bonds, one of which is registered under the name Lyra of Serath." Ethan frowned. "Fleet rights? Property, life bond? Look, I think you've got the wrong human," he said, trying to sound brave, but his voice cracked slightly. The alien only bowed, handed him a small crystal tablet, and said, "Everything you own now rests beyond your understanding, but soon you will see." Then the 3 figures returned to their ship. It rose without sound and disappeared into the sky like mist. Ethan stood alone, staring at the glowing tablet in his hand. The screen flickered, showing strange alien symbols. Then a translation appeared. "Transfer complete. Await arrival of bonded companion." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The glowing tablet sat on his table, casting blue light across his small room. He kept telling himself it was a joke, a scam, maybe a government test. But his gut said otherwise. Deep down, he knew something real had started. Something beyond his control. Just before dawn, another light filled the sky, but this time softer, slower. It wasn't a ship from any movie he'd seen. It looked alive, breathing. Its hull rippled like ocean waves. The vessel landed gently outside his workshop. The air smelled like metal rain. From the ship's ramp, a woman stepped out. No, not exactly a woman. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes deep violet. Her hair flowed like white silk under moonlight. She wore a thin suit made of glowing threads. Her every step was quiet, graceful, perfect. Ethan's breath caught. He didn't know whether to speak or hide. The alien woman looked straight at him and said softly, "Ethan Cole, I am Lyra. By law and bond, I am yours." He almost dropped his wrench. "Mine? Wait, hold on, what does that even mean?" She lowered her gaze, voice trembling slightly. "By the will of Lord Karen, my master, and by ancient law of the Sereth bloodline, I belong to his chosen heir." "You?" Ethan shook his head, stepping back. No, this can't be right. I'm just a mechanic. I fix engines, not whatever this is." Lyra looked at him with sadness, her voice quiet but firm. "Refusing the bond would mean my death. It has already been sealed by the inheritance code." Her words froze the air between them. Ethan's chest tightened. This wasn't a dream anymore. This was real. A low hum echoed outside. Ethan ran to the door and saw glowing marks appearing on the metal wall of his workshop. Strange curved symbols burning faintly red. Lyra's eyes widened. "They know you've accepted the inheritance," she whispered. "Who knows?" Ethan asked, but she didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed his arm with unexpected strength. "You must come with me now." Ethan resisted. "I'm not leaving my home," he said. But then the ground trembled. A dark shadow passed above them, and the sound of something huge moving filled the air. Lyra pulled him toward her ship, her face pale and urgent. "If you stay, you die," she said. "They will come for you, for the heir, for me, for everything he left behind." Ethan hesitated for only a second, then looked back at his workshop, the place he'd built with his own hands, the only home he'd known, and watched as one of the red symbols exploded into sparks. He turned back to Lyra, eyes wide with fear and disbelief. "Who are they?" he asked again. She looked at him, eyes glowing softly in the dark. "Those who killed my master, and now they're coming for you." As the ship's ramp closed behind them, the sky outside turned crimson, and Ethan realized his quiet life on Earth had ended forever. Whatever he had inherited was far greater than wealth, far more dangerous than he could imagine, and far more alive. The engines roared softly. The stars shifted outside, and Lyra whispered one last thing before the ship jumped into light. "From this moment, Ethan Cole, your life belongs to the stars." The ship drifted through the dark sea of stars, its hull glowing faint blue as it passed through a silent corridor of light. Ethan sat near the observation window, staring at the endless void outside. He still couldn't believe what had happened. Only hours ago he was fixing broken engines on Earth. Now he was flying through space beside an alien woman who claimed to be his bonded wife. Lyra sat opposite him, calm and unreadable, her eyes fixed on a small glowing sphere in her hands. It projected strange symbols and faces that flickered like ghosts. She wasn't crying, but her silence felt heavy. Ethan wanted to ask questions, hundreds of them, but her cold eyes stopped him every time he tried. Finally, he couldn't hold it anymore. "So," he said carefully, "you're saying I'm your husband now?" Lyra looked up slowly, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. "By the laws of Serath, yes," she replied softly. "You are the legal heir, and I am bound to you by life code." Ethan frowned. "Bound? Like, you don't have a choice?" Her gaze dropped again. "No," she whispered. "If I break the bond, I die. The code will end my pulse instantly. It is part of the inheritance law." Ethan leaned back, shaking his head. "That's insane. You're a person, not some kind of property." She blinked, as if confused by his words. "Among my kind, inheritance includes everything the noble owned. Land, ships, servants, even life bonds." He stared at her, anger rising in his chest. "That's wrong," he said. "I don't want a servant. I don't want a wife I didn't choose." Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes flickered, a spark of emotion quickly buried beneath layers of control. "You think I chose this either?" she said quietly, her voice trembling for the first time. "I was raised to obey, not to dream." The silence that followed was long, cold and painful. Ethan looked away, guilt burning in his chest. He wanted to say sorry, but before he could, the ship's console began to beep. Lyra stood immediately, her movements sharp and precise. "They're tracking us," she said, tapping glowing symbols on the control panel. "Who's tracking us?" Ethan asked, standing beside her. She didn't look at him, her fingers moving faster. "The hunters," she said, "those who killed Lord Karen. They want his code, his fortune, and me. And now that you are bound to both, they want you dead." Ethan swallowed hard, trying to make sense of it all. "So I inherited an alien wife and a target on my back," he muttered. "Great." Lyra didn't smile. She turned to him with cold seriousness. "Do not joke about this, Earthling. They will not stop. They will burn your planet if they must." The console flashed red. Alarms echoed through the cabin. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They found us." A huge shadow appeared outside the window. A black ship, sleek and alive like a predator stalking prey. Bright blue energy trails glowed along its body. Lyra pressed a button and the entire ship tilted. The stars outside blurred as they entered a narrow warp lane. The engine screamed. Ethan held onto the nearest wall. "You can't outrun them forever," he shouted. Lyra's calm voice answered through the chaos. "I don't have to, just long enough to reach the safe world." After several tense minutes, the alarms went silent. The black ship vanished from the sensors, and the stars returned to stillness. Ethan exhaled, heart pounding. "Safe world?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "A planet hidden under the old treaties. Neutral ground, few know its location," Ethan sighed, sitting again, sweat on his forehead. "You act like you've done this 1,000 times." She finally turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "I was born in a war," she said simply. "I survived by obeying." Something about the way she said it made Ethan's chest ache. He saw now the tiny scars on her hands, the way she avoided eye contact too long. She wasn't emotionless. She was protecting herself. He leaned forward, voice softer. "Lyra, what did they do to you?" Her lips trembled slightly. She looked away. "You do not want to know," she said. "The hunters serve Varen, Lord Karen's brother, the one who murdered him." Ethan's stomach twisted. "Your uncle?" She nodded slowly. He wanted the inheritance code. The code that now lives in your blood. That's why the notary chose you. An off-worlder. Unmarked by politics, a human with no ties. Ethan stared at her. Realization dawning. So this wasn't random. They picked me on purpose. Yes, she said softly. And now the entire Sarath Council will know you exist. He rubbed his temples, trying to calm the storm in his mind. This is insane, he muttered. I'm a nobody. How am I supposed to survive all this? Lyra's cold eyes softened just a little. You are more than you think, she said. Lord Karen must have seen something in you. He laughed bitterly. Yeah, a man who fixes broken engines. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Even broken things can fly again. For a moment, the distance between them faded. Her words carried warmth, her eyes no longer as cold. But before he could say anything, the ship's systems beeped again. The navigation screen displayed a glowing planet surrounded by mist. Lyra straightened. We're here, she said. Sanctum 9, my refuge. The ship descended through thick silver clouds, landing on a wide platform made of black crystal. Strange towers rose around them, glowing faint blue. The place looked ancient and sacred. As the ramp opened, Lyra walked ahead, but before Ethan could follow, a metallic voice echoed through the air. Unauthorized air detected. Lyra froze, her face turning pale. No, she whispered. They've already corrupted the sanctuary. Dozens of tall figures appeared, their eyes burning crimson, armor engraved with the same red marks that burned on Ethan's workshop wall. One of them stepped forward, raising a weapon shaped like a spear of light. Ethan's heart raced. He grabbed a tool belt from the ship's floor, the only thing that felt familiar. Lyra stepped in front of him, spreading her arms wide. Stay behind me, she said firmly, her eyes blazing with violet fire. Ethan's breath caught as light pulsed from her hands, forming a glowing shield around them for the first time. She didn't look cold or distant, she looked alive, fierce, unstoppable. The crimson warriors charged, and the night sky filled with light. As the battle began, Ethan realized something. The woman he had inherited wasn't just an alien bride. She was a warrior bound by fate, and he was now part of a war older than humanity itself. The mist around Sanctum 9 glowed faintly under the storm of energy fire. Bright beams of light streaked across the air as Lyra's shield shimmered and cracked. Ethan could feel the vibration in his bones. Each hit against her barrier sounded like thunder breaking metal. He crouched behind her, clutching a metal rod, a useless tool against weapons that could melt steel. There's too many of them, he shouted, the air around them burning with sparks. Lyra's voice was calm but strained. They're hunters of Varen. They were waiting here. We can't fight them all. Her eyes glowed brighter. We must reach the inner chamber. She pressed her hand to the floor. Alien symbols lit up beneath her fingers. A circular door opened in the ground, leading down into darkness. Go, she commanded. Ethan hesitated. What about you? I'll seal the entrance, she said, voice sharp. Move, human. He wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes silenced him. Ethan jumped into the dark passage. The air below was cold and filled with the smell of old stone and metal. Seconds later, Lyra followed, the door above them closing with a heavy hiss, muffling the chaos outside. For a few moments there was silence, only the echo of their breaths. Faint blue lights came to life along the corridor walls. Ethan looked around. The tunnels were ancient, carved from black crystal. Runes glowed faintly as they walked. What is this place? He asked. Lyra walked ahead, her voice distant. A sanctuary of the old empire built long before my people reached the stars. Lord Karen used it to hide something. Something the hunters want, Ethan frowned. And what exactly is that? She stopped and looked back at him, her expression unreadable. You, she said quietly. He blinked, confused. Me? Lyra nodded slowly. When Lord Karen chose you as his heir, he didn't just give you wealth. He gave you the last part of his genetic key. His code now lives in your blood and through you. The vault can be opened. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. So, they want to kill me because I'm a walking password. In simple terms, she said coldly. Yes. They kept moving deeper until they reached a vast chamber filled with floating crystals, each one humming softly. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. The air shimmered with energy. This place feels alive, he whispered. Lyra nodded. It responds to the code in you. She walked closer to the center. Touched the main pillar. He hesitated. And what happens if I do? Her violet eyes softened. Then you'll understand why they fear you. Ethan slowly placed his hand on the tall crystal pillar. Light burst around him, flooding the chamber. Visions flickered in his mind. Cities made of light, alien fleets rising into battle, and a tall noble with golden eyes standing beside Lyra, his voice echoing in Ethan's head. If you see this, then my blood has chosen you. The vision shifted. The noble faced an army. His brother Varen behind them, betrayal in his eyes, protect her. The noble's voice said, protect Lyra, for she carries the key to our world's rebirth. Ethan gasped as the vision faded, falling to his knees, his body trembling from the rush of energy. He knew me, he said, voice shaky. Lyra knelt beside him, placing a cold hand on his shoulder. Now you see you're not just an accident. He planned this. Ethan looked up, breathing hard. But why me? I'm no soldier. I'm not special. Lyra's gaze lingered on him, her voice soft. Because you have something our kind lost long ago. Humanity. Before he could respond, a deep rumble shook the chamber. Cracks appeared in the crystal walls. The red glow of the hunter's weapons pierced through the upper tunnels. They're breaking in, Ethan shouted. Lyra's expression hardened. She raised her hand and the crystals around them began to rotate, forming a shield of light. We must awaken the vault before they arrive. She touched the pillar, sending another wave of energy through the floor. The ancient machines roared to life, massive doors slid open, revealing a chamber filled with dormant starships, old but powerful, their hulls marked with the Seraph crest. Ethan's eyes widened. You've got to be kidding me. That's a fleet, Lyra nodded. The last fleet of House Seraph. She turned to him. And by blood law, it now obeys you. Ethan took a shaky step forward, trying to process it all. So I've inherited an army too? He said, half joking, half afraid. Lyra looked at him seriously. Not an army, a promise. Karen's fleet was built to protect, not conquer. The tunnel above them exploded, dust and fire rained down. Red-armored soldiers dropped from the ceiling, weapons glowing. Kill the air, one shouted. Ethan ducked behind a console, shouting, Lyra, we can't fight them all. Lyra's eyes flashed with violet fire again. She raised both hands, releasing a wave of energy that knocked half the attackers across the room. We don't need to fight them all, she said. We just need to escape. She pressed a glowing sigil on the wall. One of the old ships came alive. Lights flickering across its hull, the engines roared. Ancient but strong. Get in. She shouted. Ethan ran toward the ship. Blaster fire scorching the ground behind him, he jumped inside. Lyra following close. As soon as the hatch sealed, the ship lifted off, blasting through the collapsing tunnels outside. The surface of Sanctum 9 erupted in chaos. Ships from the hunters pursued them through the clouds, beams of energy lighting the sky. Ethan gripped the controls tightly. You can fly this thing? Lyra gave him a sharp look. I was born in a war, remember? The ship jerked violently as explosions rocked the air. Ethan glanced at her. We're not going to make it, are we? Lyra's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. You forget, heir of Seraph. The void always favors those who dare. She pulled a lever. The ship's core glowed brighter. And suddenly they vanished into the stars, leaving only burning wreckage behind. For a long moment there was silence again. Ethan looked out at the stars stretching before them. We just escaped death, he said, voice still shaking. Lyra nodded slowly, her eyes calm but distant. No, Ethan Cole, she whispered. We didn't escape it. We delayed it. She turned her gaze to the stars, her expression unreadable. Because the shadows from the void are still watching us. The mist around Sanctum 9 glowed faintly under the storm of energy fire. Bright beams of light streaked across the air as Lyra's shield shimmered and cracked. Ethan could feel the vibration in his bones. Each hit against her barrier sounded like thunder breaking metal. He crouched behind her, clutching a metal rod, a useless tool against weapons that could melt steel. There's too many of them, he shouted, the air around them burning with sparks. Lyra's voice was calm but strained. They're hunters of Varen. They were waiting here. We can't fight them all. Her eyes glowed brighter. We must reach the inner chamber. She pressed her hand to the floor. Alien symbols lit up beneath her fingers. A circular door opened in the ground, leading down into darkness. Go, she commanded. Ethan hesitated. What about you? I'll seal the entrance, she said, voice sharp. Move, human. He wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes silenced him. Ethan jumped into the dark passage. The air below was cold and filled with the smell of old stone and metal. Seconds later, Lyra followed, the door above them closing with a heavy hiss, muffling the chaos outside. For a few moments there was silence, only the echo of their breaths. Faint blue lights came to life along the corridor walls. Ethan looked around. The tunnels were ancient, carved from black crystal. Runes glowed faintly as they walked. "What is this place?" he asked. Lyra walked ahead, her voice distant. The stars outside the ship shimmered like cold fire. Silent and endless, Ethan sat in the co-pilot's seat. Staring at the navigation screen, the readings made no sense to him. Coordinates, alien symbols, and strange rotating paths across the galaxy. He was trying to make sense of anything, but his thoughts were louder than the ship's hum. They had escaped Sanctum 9, but it hadn't felt like victory, more like running from a storm that refused to end. His mind replayed the image of those red-eyed soldiers shouting, "Kill the air." The words echoed in his skull again and again. Lyra sat at the front of the cockpit, hands still on the glowing controls, her face half hidden in the dim blue light. She hadn't spoken since they entered warp. The calm in her expression was sharp, almost inhuman. But her eyes told another story: fear, exhaustion, and something deeper that she refused to name. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "You knew all of this would happen, didn't you?" Her fingers froze for a second. "I knew Varen wouldn't stop," she replied softly. "I didn't know he would follow us even into Sanctum airspace. That is a sacred crime." He leaned forward, voice hard. "Then tell me the truth. All of it. Why me? Why this inheritance? What did your master really want?" Lyra's lips parted slightly, her eyes distant. "You won't like the answer," she said. "I haven't liked any of this since it started," he said dryly. "Try me." She turned her chair toward him slowly, her violet eyes glowing faintly. "The bond between us isn't just legal. It's biological," she began, her voice calm but trembling at the edges. "When Lord Karen chose you as heir, he didn't just sign your name into law. He fused part of his own bloodline into yours and tied it to me." Ethan frowned. "Fused? How?" "I never met him." "You didn't have to," she said. "The code was prepared long ago. His scientists scanned millions of genetic records across the galaxy, searching for a living structure that could carry the Serath key safely. Your DNA matched it." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "So I was chosen because of my biology?" "Because of what's inside you," she said quietly. "Your body holds the last active key that can unlock Karen's inheritance, and his enemies know it." He leaned back, his pulse quickening. "And you? What's your part in this?" Lyra hesitated, then looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm not just his bondservant, Ethan," she whispered. "I'm the lock." Ethan blinked, not understanding. "The lock?" She nodded, her voice breaking slightly. "My neural system was designed to connect with the heir. Only when the heir accepts the bond willingly can the inheritance code activate. It's a safeguard, to ensure no thief could claim Karen's power by force." Ethan stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "So if I reject you?" She finished the sentence for him, her tone heavy and sad. "Then the code dies, and so do I." The silence that followed was long and painful. Ethan rubbed his face, pacing across the small cockpit. "This is insane," he muttered. "You're telling me my choices decide whether you live or die?" "Yes," she said simply, "and I don't expect mercy. Humans are not known for kindness." That last sentence hit him like a knife. "You don't know me," he said sharply. Her voice was cold again. "You are human. That is enough." Ethan stopped pacing and looked at her, his anger softening into something else. "Then maybe it's time you see what being human really means," he said quietly. "I'm not rejecting you, Lyra. I don't know what this bond means yet. But I'm not letting anyone die because of me." For the first time since he met her, her eyes softened, her voice trembling as she whispered, "You would carry a burden that isn't yours?" He gave a small, tired smile. "You already risked your life for me? Seems fair." Before she could answer, the ship's alarms blared again. Red lights flashed across the console. Lyra turned quickly, her calm expression snapping back into focus. "They found us again," she said. "They've locked onto our warp trail." Ethan ran to the side window. Two dark shapes moved through the void, hunter ships, sleek and deadly, glowing red from their engines. "How do they keep finding us?" he asked. Lyra's hands flew across the controls. The bond signal, she said. It emits energy when you're near me. Varen's trackers can trace it, Ethan swore under his breath. Then we need to break it. She shook her head quickly. No, you break the bond, you break me, remember? Then what do we do? He said desperately. Lyra paused, her expression tightening. There's one place they won't follow us. The rift. Ethan frowned. The rift? What's that? Her voice dropped to a whisper. A place between space and nothingness. A graveyard of ships that disappeared long ago. It bends signals and hides anything inside, but it's unstable. Unstable? Ethan repeated, like how unstable? Lyra's eyes darkened. Like death unstable, she said. But it's our only chance. The ship shuddered as blasts of red light passed by. Shaking the hull, sparks flew from the ceiling. Ethan grabbed onto the seat. Then do it before they burn us alive. Lyra's fingers blurred across the controls. Her expression fierce now, no longer calm or cold. Hold on. Human, she said. Once we enter, nothing will feel real. The stars outside twisted like liquid. The ship trembled violently. The sensors went dark. For a moment it felt like falling through water made of light. Colors changed shape and time itself bent. When the shaking stopped, there was silence. Outside the window was no longer space. It was darkness filled with floating wreckage. Giant ships torn apart, drifting slowly in the void. Lightning crackled soundlessly between them. Ethan whispered, What is this place? Lyra's voice was soft, distant, almost sad. The resting place of those who challenged the void, she said, and lost. He looked at her. How did you know this place even existed? Her eyes shimmered faintly. Because I brought him here once, she said. Lord Karen hid something in the rift, a secret even Varen never found. Ethan leaned forward. What kind of secret? She turned to face him, her voice trembling. The memory of his true heir. Before Ethan could speak, the ship's systems flickered again. A new signal appeared, one of faint but clear. A message hidden deep inside the rift's static. It was Karen's voice echoing through time. If you're hearing this, my heir, then the bond has awakened. Protect her. And you'll find the heart of Serath. Lyra covered her mouth, tears filling her violet eyes. Ethan's breath caught, and for the first time, he saw her as more than an alien, more than a mystery. She was someone broken by loyalty, carrying a promise across stars. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. We'll find it, he said softly. Whatever this heart of Serath is, we'll find it together. Lyra turned toward him slowly, her lips trembling, and whispered, Then the bond is complete. A faint glow spread from her chest to his. Two streams of light connecting like threads of energy. Warm and alive, the ship around them pulsed in response, the engines humming as if waking from a dream. Ethan felt the weight of destiny settle inside him, and Lyra's whisper echoed in his mind. Now we are one. Air of Serath outside, the shadows of the void stirred, unseen. Waiting for the next move, the rift spat the ship out with a violent shudder. Stars exploded into view, bright and alien, their light sharp and unfamiliar. Ethan gripped the seat as the engine screamed and finally calmed. His breath came out in shaky bursts. The view outside was breathtaking. Twin suns burning over a crimson world. Oceans of silver clouds drifting above mountains that glowed faintly blue. Lyra's voice broke the silence, calm but cautious. We're in the Oris system, she said. This is Karen's world, or what remains of it. Ethan leaned closer to the window. The planet below looked scarred. Entire continents blackened, cities in ruins. Giant craters glowing faint red like wounds that never healed. This doesn't look like home, he whispered. Lyra's gaze darkened. It used to be paradise. Before Varen turned it into his throne, she said quietly. He rules through fear now. The old Serath loyalists hide among the ashes. The ship descended through the atmosphere, shaking as flames streaked around the hull. Ethan watched the twin suns reflected in Lyra's eyes, her face set in determination, her silver skin almost glowing. What are we doing here? He asked. Won't this be the first place they look for us? Lyra nodded slightly. Yes, but it's also the last place they'd expect you to walk freely. When they landed, the air was heavy and metallic. Winds carried the scent of smoke and ash. The landscape stretched endless. Black soil, broken towers, twisted metal skeletons of ships half buried in dust. Ethan stepped out, his boots sinking into the soft ground. Feels like walking on a grave, he muttered. Lyra scanned the horizon, her hand hovering near a small device on her belt. It is, she said softly. This world buried millions when the war ended. But not everyone died. A faint sound echoed through the distance. Metallic steps. Shadows moved between the wreckage. Ethan tensed, reaching for a nearby metal rod. But Lyra raised her hand. Don't, she said. They're allies from behind the ruins. A group of tall, armored figures emerged, their armor scratched and dull, carrying banners that still bore the faded crest of House Serath, a winged sun surrounded by 6 stars. The leader removed his helmet, revealing gray skin and eyes that glowed faint blue. Lady Lyra, he said, kneeling, we thought you were dead. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. I was bound, not broken. I return with the true heir, she gestured toward Ethan. The alien soldiers looked at him, disbelief written on every face. Whispers rippled through the group. A human, one muttered. That's the heir. Ethan swallowed, feeling small under their gaze. Yeah. Surprise, he said awkwardly. Lyra's tone hardened. He carries Karen's blood key. His will lives in this human. He is Serath's last light, the leader rose slowly, studying Ethan with cautious respect. Then the prophecy was true, he said quietly. The stars did send a stranger, Ethan frowned. Prophecy? The alien nodded. Karen spoke of an off-worlder born from dust, who would carry the flame of Serath back to its cradle. Ethan rubbed his neck, half smiling. No pressure then. Lyra turned to the leader. General Arian, how many are left? The general's expression darkened. A few hundred, hidden in the southern valleys. We fight in shadows. Varen controls the skies with his black fleet. Ethan stepped forward. Then we take the fight to him. The general's eyes widened. You speak like a warrior. Earthling, but we are broken. Our ships are ruins. Our weapons are old. Ethan glanced around at the wreckage. Gears and shattered engines half buried in the soil. A small smile tugged at his lips. Old doesn't mean useless, he said. I can fix things, Wick, it's what I do. Lyra looked at him curiously. You would rebuild an army from junk? He nodded, kneeling beside a broken engine. Where I come from, you make do with what's left, he said. Give me tools, power cells, and time, I'll make them fly again. That night, under the glow of twin moons, Ethan worked with the Serath engineers, sparks lighting the darkness as ancient machines roared to life again. He welded armor plates, rerouted alien circuits, and used old Earth tricks to bring back engines that hadn't run in years. Lyra watched from a distance, her heart caught between disbelief and admiration. She had seen warriors, kings, and commanders, but not one who worked with his own hands, sweat dripping down his face, patience steady as stone by dawn. The first warcraft hovered above the sand, engines whining like sleeping beasts waking from slumber. The Serath soldiers stared in awe. He did it, one whispered. The human did it. Ethan stepped back, covered in oil and dust, grinning proudly. Told you, he said. Just needed a little persuasion. Lyra approached him slowly, her voice soft. You've done more for them in one night than anyone since Karen's death. Ethan looked at her, his tone humble. They just needed hope, that's all. Before she could reply, the sky above them cracked with thunder. Not from weather, but from engines. Massive shadows darkened the clouds. A fleet of black ships appeared, their hulls glistening like obsidian. Varen's fleet. Arian's voice roared through the camp. Positions! Defend the valley! Lyra's expression turned cold, her hands glowing with energy. They found us. Ethan ran to one of the repaired ships, shouting, I can pilot this thing, right? Lyra looked at him sharply. You barely understand Serath tech. He smiled crookedly. Guess I'll learn fast. The engine screamed as he launched the ship into the sky. Lyra took another, leading a formation of loyalists. Blue energy beams cut through the dark clouds. Red bolts from Varen's ships rained down like fire. The battle for Karen's world began. Ethan dodged enemy fire, his heart pounding, his hands shaking but steady. Lyra's voice came through the comm. Follow my lead, heir. He laughed breathlessly. I'm right behind you. Princess. Their ships danced through chaos, explosions lighting the sky like stars reborn. One by one, Varen's hunters fell on the ground. Arian's troops cheered as the sky burned with color. Lyra's fleet, small but fierce, pushed back against impossible odds. But as the sun rose over the battlefield, a massive shadow blotted out the light. A colossal ship descended, and black and jagged. Its presence alone made the air hum. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. Filled with dread, Varen's flagship. Ethan stared at the monstrous vessel, his knuckles white on the controls. "So that's the guy who wants me dead." Lyra's voice hardened. "No, Ethan. That's the man who murdered my father." The flagship's weapons glowed crimson, and the ground trembled as its cannons charged. Ethan's ship shook under the blast waves. The sky itself seemed to burn, and in that moment, he realized this wasn't just her war anymore, it was his too. The crimson sky burned as Varen's flagship descended like a mountain of metal and hate. The ground cracked beneath its shadow. Lightning arced across its hull, and the air grew thick with the hum of power. Ethan's repaired ship shook violently in the storm that followed, his knuckles white against the controls, his heart racing faster than the engines beneath him. Below, Sarath loyalists scrambled across the ruins, their blue banners snapping in the wind. Lyra's voice echoed through the calm but fierce. "All units hold formation. Do not break the line." Ethan's ship twisted through the air, dodging red plasma beams raining down like fire. "You call that not breaking the line?" he shouted, narrowly missing another blast that turned a ridge into molten glass. Lyra's laughter came through the static, a short, sharp sound in the chaos. "Then hold it better." "Human," but her voice changed mid-sentence. Fear crept in. "He's here," she whispered. Ethan looked up through the cockpit glass, and for the first time he saw him, Lord Varen, tall and regal even through the projection that appeared across the sky, his armor black as void light, his eyes glowing like dying suns, a cruel smirk curling across his pale face. "Lyra!" Varen's voice boomed, echoing like thunder. "I see you still play servant to ghosts." Lyra's eyes hardened, her ship turning to face the projection. "You murdered your own blood. You dishonored Sarath," she said coldly. He chuckled darkly. "And yet I sit on his throne while you hide behind a human toy." Ethan's jaw clenched. "I can hear you, you know." Varen turned his gaze toward Ethan's ship, his smirk deepening. "Ah, the Earthling. The creature my brother left his empire to. Tell me, human, do you truly think the stars will kneel to a mechanic from a forgotten world?" Ethan gritted his teeth. "They don't need to kneel. Just move aside." The sky trembled as the flagship opened its lower decks, releasing waves of drones like a swarm of hornets. Red lights flashing across the clouds, Lyra shouted, "Ethan, fall back to the valley. He's deploying his swarm." But it was too late. The first wave hit, plasma fire filled the air, and one of the Loyalist ships exploded beside Ethan. His cockpit flooded with blinding light. Alarm screamed. He fought the controls as smoke filled the cabin. "Lyra!" he shouted. "I've lost stabilizers." Her ship swooped in from above, blue energy shields flaring. "I have you," she said, guiding her ship close, using her tractor beam to hold his ship steady as they descended through smoke and fire. They crashed into the valley hard, metal shrieking as the ship slid across the rocky ground. When it stopped, everything went silent except for the hiss of steam. Ethan coughed, pushing open the cracked hatch. The air outside burned with heat and dust. Lyra was already there, pulling him out before he could collapse. "You're heavier than you look," she muttered. Helping him to his feet, he managed a weak grin. "You're stronger than you look." She ignored the compliment, scanning the horizon. Varen's army was advancing, massive walkers and soldiers cloaked in red light, their banners of black flame rising in the distance. Arian, the Sarath general, rushed to them, his armor cracked, his voice desperate. "We cannot hold them, my lady. His forces outnumber us 10-1. Lyra looked at Ethan, her expression torn between logic and loyalty. "We have one chance," she said quietly. "The Heart Vault. It lies beneath Varen's throne. Karen's final secret is buried there." Ethan frowned. "You mean we go straight into his fortress?" Her eyes glowed brighter. "Yes, because that's where your inheritance truly awakens." Before he could argue, the ground shook. A massive ship landed nearby, black spikes spreading from its hull. The ramp opened and Varen himself stepped out, his presence radiating power. The air around him rippled. He looked straight at Ethan, his voice smooth but venomous. "Come down, little air, and see what greatness looks like before it kills you." Lyra stepped in front of Ethan, her energy shield glowing bright violet. "You will not touch him," she said, her tone like steel. Varen tilted his head slightly, almost amused. "You would die for him, a human? You disgrace Karen's name." Her voice trembled but did not falter. "No, I honor it." Varen raised his hand, and energy cracked through the air. A beam of red light struck Lyra's shield, shattering it instantly. She screamed as she was thrown back. "Lyra!" Ethan ran toward her, but two soldiers grabbed him. dragging him to his knees before Varen. The Lord leaned closer, his face inches away. Your kind were myths to us, fragile, weak, emotional, yet here you are, wearing my brother's title like it means something. Ethan glared at him. It means everything. Varen's expression darkened. Then die for it, he said, drawing a blade forged from pure energy. But before he could strike, the ground beneath them rumbled. Blue light bursting from the cracks, symbols glowing along the surface. The inheritance seal. Lyra's voice echoed through the dust. Broken but defiant, he accepts the bond. Fully, Varen turned, shocked. No! The light spread like wildfire, forming a massive sigil around Ethan, wind and energy swirling. His eyes glowing faint blue. The mark of the Serath heir appearing on his chest. Karen's voice echoed faintly from the energy storm. The heir stands. The throne remembers. Varen staggered back, his armor cracking under the power radiating from Ethan. Impossible, he shouted. You're human. Ethan stood tall, energy rippling around him like lightning. Human, he said, but chosen. With a motion of his hand, the blue light surged outward, striking Varen's army, their weapons shattering, their ships flickering out. Lyra rose behind him, her eyes wide with awe, the wind tossing her silver hair like flame. Varen roared in fury, summoning all his power. You think you can take what's mine? Ethan's voice cut through the chaos, steady and strong. It was never yours. He raised his hand again. The ground split open beneath Varen's feet. The betrayer screamed as light consumed him, his form vanishing into the rift that had once made him strong. When silence finally returned, only wind and ash remained. The twin suns broke through the clouds again, casting gold over the ruined battlefield. Ethan turned, helping Lyra to her feet, her eyes glistening with tears. It's over, she whispered. He looked toward the distant horizon, the once dark sky now glowing bright blue. Not yet, he said softly. We still have to rebuild. Lyra smiled faintly. Then we rebuild together, heir of Serath, Ethan smiled back. No, he said gently. We rebuild as equals. The wind carried their words across the valley, where the last of Serath's warriors knelt, not to a king, but to a human who had fought for them. And as the suns rose higher, the legend of the Earthling heir began to spread across the stars. The battlefield was quiet for the first time in decades. The smoke that once darkened the twin suns drifted away slowly, leaving behind the scent of dust and burned metal. The red banners of Varen's army lay torn across the valley, and the ground where his flagship had fallen still shimmered faintly with blue light. The mark of the Serath heir. Ethan stood on a high ridge overlooking the ruins, his clothes torn, his arms scarred but his eyes calm and steady, held something new, something larger than fear or confusion, a quiet strength born from everything he had endured. Lyra walked beside him, her silver skin glowing in the early light. Her movements gentle now, no longer weighed by chains of duty. She looked at him with eyes full of something she once thought she'd never feel again. Trust. The war is over, she said softly, her voice carried by the wind. But the damage runs deeper than we can see. Ethan nodded, gazing at the valley below, where Serath soldiers, once enemies, now survivors, helped the wounded and buried the dead. War always leaves ghosts, he murmured, but at least this time, we get to live after it. Lyra turned to him, her tone quiet but curious. You sound like Karen did before the wars began. He gave a small smile. Maybe he left a bit of himself in me after all. They stood in silence for a long moment, the sound of wind rustling through broken metal, the only music left. And then Lyra spoke again. The people are waiting for you. Ethan blinked. For me? Yes, she said. You are the heir now, their new leader, the voice of two worlds. He laughed softly, shaking his head. I'm no leader, Lyra. I'm just a mechanic who got dragged into your mess. Her lips curved into a faint smile. You fixed our ships, you restored hope, and you stood against a tyrant. Sounds like a leader to me. Before he could reply, Arian, the Serath general, approached and knelt, his cracked armor reflecting the morning light. Heir of Serath, he said formally. "The people await your word." Ethan looked uncomfortable, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't have the right words." Lyra touched his arm lightly, her voice gentle. "Then speak from the heart. Humans always do." He took a deep breath, stepping forward to the edge of the ridge. Thousands of survivors below turned their faces toward him, their armor dented, their banners burned, but their eyes alive. Waiting, hoping, Ethan raised his voice, strong but simple. "I'm not from your world," he began. "I don't know your customs, your gods, or your stars, but I know what loss feels like. I've seen it on my planet, and now I've seen it here." The crowd was silent, listening. The wind carrying his words through the ruins, he continued. "You call me heir, but I don't want to rule you. I just want to rebuild with you, the way humans rebuild after storms, together." A murmur ran through the soldiers, quiet but full of emotion. Lyra's eyes shimmered, her heart swelling with pride. Ethan went on. "Karen believed in unity. He chose me because he saw something simple. Because I wasn't one of you. I could see all of you. Not by species, but by courage, and if we're going to survive, we need to stop thinking of who we were and start building who we could be." Arian lowered his head, tears glinting on his silver skin. The soldiers began to raise their weapons slowly. Not in war, but in salute, the blue crest of Serath glowing once more above them. Lyra whispered almost to herself. He would have been proud. When the speech ended, Ethan walked back toward her, exhausted, but smiling. How was that for a first speech? She laughed quietly. "You didn't sound like a ruler." "Good," he said. "That means I did it right." For the next few days, peace settled across the ruins, human ingenuity mixed with alien brilliance. Ethan guided the rebuilding of cities, turning wrecked ships into shelters. Using Earth technology to power Serath engines, children played again beneath twin suns that no longer burned red. One evening, as the suns dipped behind the mountains, Ethan and Lyra stood on the balcony of the rebuilt citadel, the place that once served as Varen's throne, now transformed into a council hall. "You've done what none of us could," she said softly. "You ended an empire without conquering it." He glanced at her, his voice warm. "You helped." Lyra looked away, her voice faint. "At first, I thought being bonded to you was a curse," she admitted. "But now, I think it was salvation." He smiled faintly. "Funny, I was thinking the same thing." She turned back to him, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. "You could stay here, rule with the council, live as Serath's chosen." Ethan chuckled. "You really think I'd make a good king?" Her lips curved. "No. But you'd make a great partner." He looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "Maybe I already am." As night fell, the stars above shimmered brighter, and among them Earth's sun glowed faintly far away. A small, distant light, a reminder of where he came from. Lyra noticed his gaze. "Do you miss it?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Every day," he said. "But maybe this is where I'm supposed to be now." She smiled. "Two worlds, one heart," she whispered, echoing the ancient Serath vow. The next morning, as the first rays of dawn touched the new city, a massive ship rose from the Citadel's bay, its hull bearing both emblems, the crest of Serath and the flag of Earth. It was the first joint vessel of two civilizations built from both bloodlines. Ethan watched it climb toward the sky, feeling pride swell in his chest. "We'll explore together now," he said. "No more heirs, no more masters, just people." Lyra stood beside him, her hand brushing his. "Then this is the beginning," she whispered. He turned to her, smiling. "No, Lyra," he said softly. "This is home." The suns rose higher, painting the sky in gold and violet, and far above, among the stars, the legacy of a human and an alien who defied fate began to spread through the galaxy. Stories of the Earthling heir, the man who united two dying worlds, would echo for centuries, told across stars that once feared humanity, now whispering a different truth, that humans did not conquer the stars. They healed them. And somewhere in the soft morning light, as the winds carried the sound of rebuilding cities, Lyra looked up at Ethan and said with a gentle smile, "Now I am all yours." Ethan smiled back, eyes full of warmth. "No, Lyra," he whispered. "Now, we are all ours." The twin suns rose over a world reborn, and the legend of the heir of two worlds began.